Hello and welcome back to another live session here with me, Lisa. I am the head coach and owner of Nutrition Coaching and Life, where we help people lose body fat, gain muscle, and improve their body composition and their relationship with food. Today, we're going to talk about self-sabotage and how to stop it. I actually thought that this week was Thanksgiving in the US. That's kind of why I purposefully scheduled this live call a couple of days beforehand, but of course it's still in time because I know it's actually next week. Anyway, hopefully this is a topic which will interest people, particularly with Thanksgiving coming up, but also other holidays or whatever struggles we have. It's not just that we struggle with self-sabotage around those days. It just tends to be a little bit more difficult, I guess, to adhere to what we're setting ourselves out to actually do. But in any case, there are many, many situations where we might self-sabotage outside of that, whether it's just at the end of a stressful day or over the weekend or when we're on vacation. So hopefully this is going to be applicable and helpful to many scenarios. I am speaking to you today from Bolivia once again. Last week was the first live session that I have done here. I am now a little bit more accustomed. I have overcome my jet lag. Tuesday, I think last week I was still a little bit like, oh. But anyway, I wanted to talk to you nonetheless. And this week I do feel very settled. I am enjoying the temperature. It's about, what is that in Fahrenheit? Let me think. It's about like 75 to 90, sort of in that range most of the time, which I think is lovely. Bogota, or where I was in Colombia, is a lot colder. So anyway, I feel settled and ready to dive into this topic. I do want to remind you that if you would like our Happy Healthy Holiday freebie, simply comment below that you would like me to send it to you, or I will actually put the link in the show notes as well. But of course, you can comment and let me know in any case, or send me an email so I can send it to you directly. This is an actual handbook, or has specific action steps in how to approach the holidays more successfully, so that you don't finish the year or start the new year feeling gross about yourself and feeling like you need to do something extreme. So yes, I highly recommend checking it out if you have not done so. But today, as I mentioned, we are talking about self-sabotage. So yes, we all know what sort of forms of self-sabotage we tend to engage in. Mostly everyone has their particular moments and scenarios where they're more prone to do so. But I want to give you some specific action steps on how to forego that. First, let's talk about more like the, how do I want to say, the factual things that we can do. So, for example, when it comes to food, making sure that we're actually not eating way too low throughout the week just to have a higher allowance on the weekend, and then it turns into a binge, or making sure we're eating our vegetables and protein first and that we are hydrated and that it doesn't turn into a binge later on. So sometimes what I see is, people over restricting over throughout the week, or even throughout the early day, because they want to save up a certain amount of calories for a specific event. And then they go into that event with the best intentions, but it turns into a bit of a binge and they quote unquote lose control. And when we lose control, that is when afterwards we feel guilty because we had a different plan. It's not that the indulgence itself is what makes us feel so bad necessarily. It really is just, hey, I had a different plan and I didn't get myself to follow through with this. And that is when sometimes our physical instincts take over. So they might take over if we are way too fatigued from the week, if we are way too hungry from the week, if we are not satiated enough in terms of micronutrients, and we haven't had our protein for the day or our fiber for the day. So those would be some practical tips in the sense of, yes, do allow for a specific calorie buffer if you are planning to have a larger meal or there is simply more variety, but still make sure that you are eating something prior, or maybe that you had a protein shake at least prior on the day, that you are hydrated, that you have de-stressed in other ways, perhaps through training, perhaps through a good conversation and a walk with a friend, anything like that, that is going to help you not fall into that self-sabotage trap so easily. And of course, trying to be present on the day, the occasion, whatever you're doing as well. But even just if you are falling for self-sabotage at the end of a workday or so, like think of the things, even if you live on your own and so on, like how you can be more present in the moment. So even if you are allowing yourself to have some kind of chocolate or a dessert or some kind of treat at the end of the day, which is totally fine, just make sure you're not shoving it in and like sort of numbing, but that you are actually consciously enjoying and eating what you're eating. But anyway, I really or actually want to talk more about the mindset around all of this. So how do we stop ourselves from sabotaging all around, not just when it comes to food, but also when it comes to our business success, our relationship, our training, like anything that we set ourselves out to do, because we do all do that. Trust me, I do that still on a regular basis, even though I am aware of these strategies. But it's just something that we are naturally inclined to do because we're programmed for comfort. We're programmed to stay in our comfort zone. We're programmed not to want to venture or work towards the goals. Yes, we all need purpose and need to feel like what we're doing actually matters. But at the same time, there's always something pulling us back into that good old comfort zone. So here are some strategies how you can push out of those, and we can transfer that to any food scenario, to any work scenario, to any relationship scenario, and so on. So for me, the first really important step is to envision the person that you actually want to show up as, slash envision how you want an event to go. So for instance, just let's take Thanksgiving or any kind of event that you've got coming up as the event that we're going to script. You're going to think about not all the things that could go wrong or not all the past Thanksgivings where you have failed. No, we're going to think about what is the best case scenario, and not like utopical thinking of like, oh, I'm going to have 3 leaves of lettuce and that's about it, but like in the sense of what is that realistically going to look like and how am I presenting as the highest version of myself that I can be in that time. And try to go into as much detail as you can. So you want to envision, what are you wearing? How are you responding if someone says something triggering? How are you responding if people are trying to push food on you? We're literally going to script that entire day, but really focusing on your actions, how you're responding to the people around you, what you're selecting, how you're going about your eating process, how quickly are you chewing, who are you having conversations with, how many glasses of alcohol are you drinking, if any. So we're scripting the day, we're scripting and envisioning your higher version. And I try to do that with anything that I'm anxious about as well. And it really takes away some of the stress, and it gives us not just a hope, but like something to live towards in that moment, as opposed to just saying, oh, I hope it goes well. Well, we don't really know, like, what does that mean well? Like, how do you have to behave in order for something to classify as well? And also, I don't just want an event to go well. I actually want to have fun and get the most out of an event and take something from it in a positive way, not in the sense of like robbing someone of something, but like I want that to be something that I'm treasuring or that I'm remembering in a fond way, as opposed to, oh, let me just get through this or let me just get it over with. So visualization, and again, like we can play that in the sense of really out into the future as well. Like how do you want your house to look like in 5 years? Who do you want to be married to? What does your body look like when you're 70? Like literally everything like that. Like, and not just what does it look like, but what does it feel like to be in that moment? There's actually research on visualization and manifestation, and it shows that if we're tapping into emotions such as like, how am I feeling in that moment, things are a lot more likely to actually turn out that way, because we seem to be tapping into other brain states as well. So the more you can connect with how is this feeling, how am I feeling after Thanksgiving, how am I feeling on Christmas Day, how am I feeling when I meet my person, how am I feeling, like the more you can tap into that and like visualize and picture a positive state, the more likely you are to actually make that a reality. The second step, also still, all of this is going to be more alongside of like mindset and habits, as opposed to like practical or what should you be eating type of thing. The second step is like auditing your environment. And I mean that I've said this numerous times when it comes to other topics, but I also mean for Thanksgiving or any kind of other holiday, like trying not to necessarily like keep the chip thing or like the food, the most tempting food sitting right in front of you, where you're just like constantly kind of grazing and just being like, I'm going to take a handful and I'm going to pass on the bowl, or I am actually going to walk around the room so that I can talk to various different people, or I might help out in the kitchen or something like that. That also adds, or in that category falls also, who am I exposing myself to? Many people say or feel like they cannot choose or they often feel triggered by their family. And so it's like, oh, well, what if you can't avoid this and that person? I usually say, if possible, and there is someone who's like specifically triggering you, try not to like have a conversation with them alone, like have someone in your environment that is helping you balance that negative stimulus in a positive way. Or so for example, I have someone in my family who she's just always negative, like can find negative things about everything, and it's really draining for me. So I have found that strategy, that the only way I want to spend time with her is if we try and go into nature. So like going for a walk, or at least if we're having like a coffee catch up or whatever, sitting outside. So like something to help me balance that negative energy can be really, really helpful. And that's some other like if you have an energy vampire and an energy spender in your family, try to have that together so it's kind of a little bit more of an equilibrium. But yeah, of course that can pertain to other things as well, like are you sitting all day long, or are you actually able to go for a walk with your family and just try and animate everybody to go out there. But again, also alongside of that, longer term visualization that we talked about, 5-10 years, and not just in regards to um, Thanksgiving or other holidays, like have a vision board or have something like that's frequently reminding you of who and how you want to show up. And you might be thinking like, okay, Lisa, you've been talking about like visualization, all that, all of this time. Isn't that more all in terms of goal achievement? What does that have to do with self-sabotage? Well, you're a lot less likely to self-sabotage if you know how you want to show up. And I mean, most of us are clear on how we don't want to show up. That's like, I tend to self-sabotage in this and that way when I'm stressed, or when I'm with this person, or over this time of the year. Yeah, we're pretty clear on that, but we're not so clear on how we want to show up instead, as I mentioned before. So by gaining more clarity, and that includes the environment, that includes having a clearer picture, and literally having a clearer picture. So like having a vision board, or having frequent reminders in the sense of phrases, quotes, mantras, books that you read, the people that you follow on social media, the people that you spend the most time with, and like talking about these things in a positive way, not in the sense of I've already taken action on that, but just in the sense of I'm going to live here and there one day, and I'm going to make that happen by this. Or like what kind of conversations you have with them that's really, really powerful. Not for no reason do people say that you become the 5 people that you sort of spend the most time with. And that includes the content we consume on social media. That includes where you're living, the people where you're living, but also like if you think of your dream house, once again, the more detailed visualization you can have, the better. I'm just thinking of the Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary, where, like, really great documentary, in case you haven't seen it yet, on Netflix. I have to admit, I only watched the first 2 episodes. So the first one was on his bodybuilding career, the second one was on his actor career, and then I think the third one is more in terms of his political career. But what I just find so fascinating about him is, like, the amount of, like, he visualized, he knew what he wanted. Nobody can say they were so he was not clear on what he wanted. He was like, I'm going to be an actor, made it happen. I'm going to be a bodybuilder, made it happen. So even in there, they said that when he was a child growing up, or a teenager growing up, he had a poster of, I don't know, was it a gladiator or something like that, over his bed, and just, like, visualizing himself every single day. I'm going to be that one day. So that's the amount of clarity and also certainty that we want to have around that. The more we can eradicate doubt of, like, oh no, it's probably not going to happen, I'm not meant for this, or I'm not going to be successful on that holiday, the more you can have clarity on, well, actually, I've eaten out successfully numerous times and been to that birthday party and this birthday thing, and I managed to navigate all that perfectly fine. So why shouldn't that work for Thanksgiving? Why shouldn't that work for Christmas or whatever, right? So, like, the more we can build our self-confidence and build our certainty on, yes, I can do this, the better. Point number 4 on how we can stop to self-sabotage. And again, like, these might not seem like they're directly linked to self-sabotage. They might seem like they're coming from a different place. But still, it is connected. And this 4th point is getting better at communicating. And this is really, really helpful and very challenging for me as well. But the more you can make your intentions, your needs clear with other people, the better. So, for example, communicating with your grandma or whoever is hosting Thanksgiving. Grandma, I'm going to bring a dish as well. Is that okay? I want to bring this and that salad, blah. Or I don't really enjoy eating XYZ. Do you mind if I bring a dessert also? Or can I help you in the kitchen with this and that? I don't like the more we can just communicate, as opposed to just saying, like, oh, I'm going to shut up and sit in the corner and just eat the way that I want to. Yes, in the first instance, we might get more pushback from the food pushers that we have spoken about before. But in the second instance, we're just understood more. And even if they don't necessarily resonate with what you're doing, or might even criticize what you're doing at first, at least you communicated your position, and this doesn't mean you need to, like, justify or rectify what you're doing, but literally just saying, here's what I need, here's what I want, I'm expecting this and that, or I'm hoping for this and that, full stop. One saying that I heard a little while ago on Chris Williamson's podcast, Modern Wisdom, and I love that saying. I don't actually think it's by him, I think it's by someone else, but it goes, unspoken expectations or premeditated resentment. And I just love that quote. I think there's so much truth to that. I'll say it again. Unspoken expectations are premeditated resentment. So the more we can communicate our expectations, because truth be told, I mean, we all have expectations. We could just say, don't have any expectations. Well, how are you going to walk through life then? You're not going to have any chance of, like, fulfill. We automatically have expectations. If we go anywhere, we automatically have expectations, right? So unspoken expectations are premeditated resentment. So just think of that anytime you're communicating with your partner, but also even just with yourself. Like, this getting better at communication point is not just with others, but it is also with ourselves. So, like, building yourself up in the sense of, you can do this. Lisa, we all have this negative self-talk of, like, historically, the last few Christmases, you always gained 3 kilos. It's probably what's going to happen this year as well, because you can never resist this and that treat, and you drink too much and blah blah blah. So this is how we pull ourselves down and destroy that confidence that we were trying to build up earlier, and like not self-flagellating or like something unrealistic, but just in the sense of, hey, how we would speak to our best friend or our child or so, in that kind of sense. And with that better communication, another tip for stopping to self-sabotage is to checking in with yourself regularly. Like, what do I need and how am I feeling right now? Or also even just thinking, what did I do well and what didn't go so well, and how do I need to plan ahead? So this is especially important towards the later half of the day. Most of the time we wake up and we're super motivated, we're like structured, we're like, yes, I can do this, I'm following exactly the plan. And then the more tired we get, the more stress has happened, the more things that have pulled our trigger, or the more we have had to use our decision-making reservoir, the more we get to the end of the day and we're like, oh, screw it, whatever, I'm just going to have, like, not the thing that I actually planned for. I'm going to have way more than this, or I just really need something to calm my nerves, right? So, but if we check in with ourselves regularly throughout the day and not letting it get to the point where we're like completely exhausted, where we're just feeling so tired, the more we're able to intersect and interfere earlier on. So let's say it gets to 3 p.m. and you're starting to feel drained, and you're checking in with yourself saying, I could probably use a break right now. I still have another 2-3 hours to go with this. Instead of fighting through it and like ignoring how you're feeling, maybe take a 10-15 minute coffee break, stand on a balcony, breathe some fresh air, decaf coffee in the afternoon, whatever it might be, and then keep going. And you're not going to burn out as much as if you just like white knuckle it through, ignore shoving down how you're actually feeling. And even just like checking in with yourself throughout your meals. Again, let's say you're at Thanksgiving dinner. So do you actually need that third plate? Yes or no? Or do you actually want that third plate? Yes or no? Because we probably don't need it, but we might want it. And oftentimes it's like, well, let's intersect a break here, a pause here, and just give ourselves 5-6 minutes to just let things settle and see if you actually want that third plate or not. And just by doing that on a regular basis, we can really, really avoid going into that self-sabotage trap. And even more so, of course, if you have an accountability person, if you have your spouse with whom you said, like, hey, I really don't want to drink alcohol today. I want to go to the gym tomorrow morning. Can you please just like help me stay accountable with that? And he might be like, hey, cool, yeah, absolutely, me too. Or it might say, sure, it might be your coach, if you have a nutrition coach that you're having this conversation with, at least somebody who knows your intentions, so that is just that extra layer of prevention from keeping you from self-sabotaging. Number 6, and this is a really important one, realizing that some retraction, some steps back, some form of self-sabotage from time to time is actually normal, and it's even a good sign, meaning it's a sign of progress. Of course, not if the retraction or if the self-sabotage continues to happen at such regular intervals and all the time, but if it a lot of the clients that I start working with, they get into a flow, and then after a few weeks, they might have a setback and they get really frustrated and really angry with themselves and like, why did this happen? I was in such a good routine. I'm like, hang on, this was actually a good thing. This is your old self coming back to test you, to see, come on, you get back into comfort zone. We don't want you to grow. But by this coming back, by this happening, we know that you are on the brink of a breakthrough, or that you are progressing and growing. It's just important, or what is usually happening is that these intervals of what we call retraction are becoming less and less. So first it might happen after 4 weeks, and then it might happen once a quarter, and then it might happen after 6 months, and then it might happen only on this holiday, and then it just gets less and less and less, or the tests get different or become different, and that is absolutely fine. So the important thing is just that we want to be like trying to learn from that and just see what went wrong. Was I maybe overstressed again, and I didn't follow some of the usual habits that I have already installed? Do I, yeah, like literally anything. So we want to learn from that. We want to reflect on that. Again, a coach can be helpful working through all these things. But yes, then kind of bringing it all together, step number 7 is a compilation of some of the previous things that we mentioned. So we need to keep holding on to that vision, and even, or also as we progress, uplifting that vision. So like if I am now creating a vision of who I want to be, how I want to show up as next year or in 3 or 5 years time, in a year or in 3 years time, I should have already looked at the vision behind the vision and keep uplifting myself with people that also grow instead of people that stay the same or even pull me down. So there's another saying like that: the thing that got you there is not the thing that's going to get you to the next level, right? So if we want to keep on growing, we need to keep growing that vision as well. I think that sometimes was something that people don't talk about enough and is actually really, really important. But yeah, again, you might be thinking, how is that connected with self-sabotage? Well, just trying to reach one level and then staying there and thinking you're completely comfortable is another form of self-sabotage, because we're all capable of greatness and we all deserve the absolute, absolute best. And for me, like one of my missions in life is to just keep building. Yes, being happy in the moment. Yes, living day to day, and yes, also being proud and satisfied in the moment, but at the same time to keep striving. That doesn't mean we need to like constantly exhaust ourselves. Rest and pause and maintenance periods are definitely part of that. But still in a longer picture vision, wanting to keep growing is really, like, in my opinion, a very important quality. And with that, of course, things that just always help are like books and other people's experiences, because if we just shut ourselves down and think we know it all, we've already lost, so to speak. So yes, I'm gonna recap that. And if you thought that this live chat was going to be something completely different, I apologize, but at the same time I don't, because I do still think that this is all very much directly connected or indirectly connected with self-sabotage. So here are some of the ways that you can stop yourself from self-sabotaging, not just when it comes to food, not just when it comes to the holidays. For those, I gave you some tips in the sense of protein and hydration, and for all of that, we've got our Happy Healthy Holiday Handbook. But for this type of self-sabotage avoidance, I want you to envision and get more clear and clear on the type of person that you want to show up as in whichever scenario, and the type of person that you want to become, and kind of scripting any kind of day that you are feeling anxious about, any kind of scenario that you're having doubts about, or where you have historically self-sabotaged. The more clear you can be on how you want to handle them in the future and how they would go by best case scenario, the better. And then with that, also auditing your environment to help with that, so that your environment, the people around you, the conversations that you have, the information that you're consuming is all helping to elevate you as opposed to bringing you down. And with that, having frequent reminders of any kind of sort, whether that might be a vision board or sticky notes or audiobooks, or like, if the more often you can think of that higher version of yourself throughout the day, the better. And fourth point was to get better at communicating with yourself, with other people, what you want, what you need, because unspoken expectations are premeditated resentment. And then point number 5 was to check in with yourself as regularly or as often as is kind of useful. So it might be once an hour, might be at the very least in the morning and in the evening. Ideally, also having an accountability person, either a coach or your partner or someone who might share a similar vision, and realizing that any form of retraction or setback is actually your old self just testing you. And as long as you're realizing that that is something positive, that that's something that you can learn from, it is a sign of growth, because it means you are pushing your boundaries, you're pushing outside of your comfort zone. And then number 7, last one, was to keep holding on to that vision, but also to create a vision past the vision if you want to keep growing, and if you don't want to have settle for mediocrity as a form of self-sabotage. So hopefully you found this helpful. It was a little bit of a different how to stop self-sabotage kind of scenario, but I hope you liked it. If you have any feedback for me, then please drop it in the comments or reach out in any other way, whether that might be through Instagram or the email as well. I'm always happy to hear from you, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day today.